Okay. Okay. Our interpreter is back. We are back in order. And so now at this point in our agenda, we're going to welcome back to the podium the Executive Director for the White House Initiative on Black Americans, Executive Director Alexis Holmes.
Good afternoon again. Very quickly, as we were chatting about, well, not chatting about, as we were discussing the importance of youth voice, we have a youth leader here. And so I would like to very quickly introduce you. Sorry. That's okay.
I'd like to more slowly introduce you.
Yes. Yes. So we will pause momentarily, and then we will bring Lordis Robinson to the stage, and she is our DC Youth Mayor, and she is going to say a few words, and she will then introduce Secretary Cardona, and we will continue on with our evening. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, since we have a little break, there's so much resources in this room, new contacts. Will we be able to get everyone's phone number, address, email address right now?
Because the credentials of this group are vast and they are deep, and we certainly want to benefit from your wisdom, knowledge, and expertise, to the extent that you're willing to share. Because we do have some time, are there any other sort of housekeeping questions? Okay. Well, we're just still holding. Talk to your neighbor, and we'll be back very soon. Okay, everybody, we are back. So as was previously mentioned, we are now going to hear from the DC Youth Mayor, Mayor Lordis Robinson.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Lordis Robinson, and I serve as District of Columbia's Youth Mayor.
Yeah.
From elementary school, I knew attending college was my goal. My parents ingrained in me the importance of education. Sentences started with, be the best in school to get into a good college, or college prepares you for a good career. College was not an option for my four parents. as they were blue-collared workers. For several Black families, the only way to pass generational wealth was to purchase a house and leave it for the next generation to build upon. Understanding this history and being a senior in high school, I continuously ponder about my future. As I submit college applications, the discussion of paying for college begins. In conversing with my family about college, daily living expenses limited the savings available to pay for the education that could transform the next generation. College tuition has outstripped my family's modest income. However, this is true for many Black families. Students eager to attend university or develop trade skills are unable to or subjected to student loans, causing financial burdens in hopes of furthering their education and/or workforce skills. This commission on advancing educational equity, excellence, and economic opportunity for Black Americans can make this possible for this fifth-generation African American and others to generate family wealth without the burden of excessive student loans. Instead, we can reinvest in our communities because education isn't just what's in the books or the classrooms. It's the financial literacy, it's parent involvement, and the community. Thank you. Now, I have the honor of introducing Secretary Cardona. Dr. Miguel A. Cardona became the 12th U.S. Secretary of Education after a distinguished career as an elementary school teacher, principal, district administrator, and Connecticut Education Commissioner. He is a firm believer that being an educator isn't just a job, it's an extension of your life's purpose. Secretary Cardona's focus throughout his career on raising the bar for equity and excellence for all learners guides his leadership of the agency in service of the nation's 65 million students and families. He oversaw efforts to safely reopen schools for in-person learning, going from only 46% of schools open when President Biden took office to nearly 100% open just 9 months later, while distributing historic federal education funding for K-12 schools and colleges. Across all these priorities, Secretary Cardona has highlighted the urgency of seizing the moment through intentional collaboration and the opportunity we have not only to recover from the pandemic, but to reimagine a more equitable education system that works better for all. He and his wife, Marissa, are proud parents of one student in public high school and another in college. May I introduce U.S. Secretary of Education, Dr. Miguel A. Cardona.
How we doing? How was your day at work today? Pretty good? Great to be here. Great to be here. Let's give it up for our DC Youth Mayor, Lordis Robinson. What an impressive young leader. She's a senior in high school. Can you imagine? Pretty soon we'll see you on the ballot for DC Mayor, I'm sure. Really, really happy to be with you all today. I want to just thank you for your commitment to this important shared work that we have together. Looking around the room, I see some faces that I know, leaders I'm proud to call friends, and others who I hope to get to know better in the upcoming year. I want to congratulate you on this prestigious appointment. The Department of Education is the proud home of the White House Initiative on Advancing Educational Equity, Excellence, and Economic Opportunity for Black Americans. I love that title. I love that title. I want to acknowledge and ask you to help me give it up for the Executive Director, Alexis Holmes, and her team. I've had the pleasure of working with Alexis, and I tell you, when we talk about celebrating Black excellence in this country, there's nobody I want next to me more than you. Thank you. As Secretary of Education, I'm honored to serve as chair of this initiative. I'm also deeply honored to work with President Biden and Vice President Harris, two leaders who understand that representation matters. Look around this room. You're here because you embody excellence. You embody leadership. You embody innovation. We have lifelong educators and experts in pedagogy, like my friend Becky. Good to see you, Becky. We have groundbreaking leaders in philanthropy and business. We have national advocates for Black students and families. Who better than you to be a voice for America's communities of color? Who better than you to identify barriers to progress and work with us to help break them? Who better than you to help this administration deliver on the promise of equal opportunity for all? Who better than you? The work of this commission comes at a critical moment for both our Black and brown students and our educational system at large. Here's something that I believe in my heart and I know in my bones, that talent, creativity, innovation, excellence, they're alive in every community across our country. And yet, access to educational opportunity remains far too tied to race, place, and income. The inequities are real and felt in so many ways. Inadequate resources, low expectations, the school-to-prison pipeline, segregation as stubbornly persistent in our schools as it is in housing and infrastructure. It's kind of like sort of like an educational redlining. And what we're seeing is that things once done in the shade are now being done in the sunlight across our country. You're here because you believe, as I do, that the status quo cannot stand. That we must be unapologetic in our efforts to combat injustice. Our country is more diverse than ever. The world is more competitive than ever. And nurturing 100% of our talent matters more than ever. If overcoming these challenges weren't hard enough, we have forces working against us. I don't have to tell you that. We've got politicians, opportunists, demagogues out there banning books, whitewashing our history, demonizing students who are different, stoking fear and turning people against public education, the great equalizer. We're seeing racist attitudes and policies being embedded in our laws and institutions under, oftentimes, the thin veil of so-called race blindness, meeting injustice and inequity with ignorance and gaslighting. We even see it in our Supreme Court decisions, like the rulings striking down affirmative action and overturning President Biden's debt relief plan. Let me remind you, folks, this plan would have had 42% of our Black borrowers have their debt go down to zero, but it was turned down. It was intentionally aiming at addressing the racial wealth gaps that we have in our country. All this is happening while Black students already face higher obstacles to higher education, as we heard from Lordis a little while ago. And when white families have 8 times the wealth of Black families in this country. We cannot sit on the sidelines. We need to raise the bar for our students. Our nation's future depends on it. At the Department of Education, we've made historic investments, from the American Rescue Plan's $130 billion in support for public schools to the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act's unprecedented $2 billion of investment in positive school climates and student mental health services. We're working to help states and schools raise the bar for academic excellence, improving learning conditions by revolutionizing student mental health and recruiting and empowering more educators of colors. It's easier to be what you can see in our schools. We, under this administration, launched the first ever grant for Grow Your Own programs aimed at making sure our schools are as beautifully diverse as our students. That's under President Biden and Vice President Harris's watch. And we are preparing students for success in our global world with multilingual learning and reimagined pathways to college and career. Thanks to President Biden's bold investments in renewable energy, infrastructure, semiconductors, and more, there are so many opportunities that await our students if we can summon the collective will to prepare them. That's why we're expanding access to cutting-edge career technical education programs and investing in career-connected learning that give our students more options, not less. We're also revolutionizing how college is financed in this country. We've forgiven, in the 2.5 years, we've forgiven $127 billion in debt for nearly 3.6 million borrowers, and we have no intention of slowing down. That's more than any other administration combined in the first 2.5 years of this administration. And our new SAVE plan, it's called our SAVE Student Loan Repayment Plan, is the most affordable in history, slashing undergraduate payments in half so that young people can climb the economic ladder without being weighed down by unaffordable debt. I'm tired of hearing stories of 12-year-olds saying, I can't go to college, I can't afford college, my parents can't afford college, and by 12 years old saying, that's not for me. We got the SAVE plan that's going to make it more affordable, more within reach. This is going to help generations to come. And we're investing in historically black colleges and universities at a clip unseen by any other administration. To date, we've provided over $7 billion for our historically black colleges and universities. And you know what's equally important? They have a seat at the table, an authentic seat at the table, not just for photo ops. They have a seat at the table, and we're listening to what they're saying as we think about the policies that we do when we move forward, while breaking down barriers to federal contracts and research grants so they can compete. That's what we're hearing from them. We need infrastructure. We need to be able to compete for these contracts. We're listening, and we're making moves there. President Biden's commitment to equity has ignited a whole-of-government effort, and your contributions on this commission will be invaluable over the next year. This work begins today, and it starts with your swearing in. Now what you're here for. Beyond her historic role as the nation's first black woman vice president, Kamala Harris is someone who understands that representation matters, that underserved communities will remain underserved until they have a voice, that people must have a seat at the table if we're going to achieve lasting change. I've been fortunate to have the opportunity to travel with the Vice President to some college campuses on the Fight for Our Freedom college tour. Let me tell you, she gets it, and she understands the power of student voice. And she wants to make sure that myself and other cabinet members are pushed to reach the potential of our country. So I am immensely proud to serve as Secretary of Education in the Biden-Harris administration and to chair the White House initiative on advancing educational equity, excellence, and economic opportunity for Black Americans. And with that, it is my great honor to introduce our Vice President, Kamala Harris.
Let me just first thank the Secretary, because you've been on my college tour with me. And, you know, if you get Miguel Cardona in the right frame of mind, he'll talk to you about KRS-One and all that. Some people understand what I'm talking about. But thank you. In front of all the leaders here, I do want to recognize you for the heart and soul and hard work and brilliance that you put into this so very important position of being Secretary of Education. He really does walk his talk in every way, both in terms of what he does in the country, but also the conversations that we have, be it in the Oval Office or in the halls of this building. So can we please applaud and thank the Secretary of Education. I'd like to address the group, but before I do want to discuss briefly what happened last night in Lewiston, Maine. I talked about this earlier today, but it became another community torn apart by gun violence. Tragically, right now in our country, the number one killer of children in America is gun violence. Not car accidents, not some form of cancer, gun violence. When you look at the data then and the statistics, and we know it anecdotally, we know it in the stories that we hear, Black Americans are 10 times more likely to be affected by and die as a result of gun violence. When we think about it in terms of the trauma that it creates in the community, often undiagnosed and untreated. So first of all, I want to just address what happened in Lewiston last night and say that, of course, the President, Doug, all of us are praying for those families who have lost a loved one and praying for the quick and speedy recovery of those who were injured and for the community in terms of its ability to heal. And there is still work being done on that case, of course, but I do believe it is important for us to speak truth as well as express our compassion and our prayers about the need for this to stop and for us to implement what we know is just reasonable and smart to at least get close to bringing an end to this. And so I'll then transition into the work of this group of extraordinary leaders by first of all just thanking each of you. You already have assumed a role of leadership in extraordinary ways and taken on responsibilities at great sacrifice to think about and address the needs of the community, and you have now yet again stepped up, as is your nature, to be members of what I am about to swear in as a new commission. So I start by thanking you. And it's interesting because the transition about the gun violence issue into the issues that you will address include, of course, what we must do to nurture the capacity of our young people, understanding not only what God has given them in terms of unyielding, unknown potential, but that must be coupled then with opportunities for them to actually realize their potential. It must be coupled with knowing who they are and what they can do, but addressing and being clear-eyed about the obstacles to them reaching that capacity. And so when I think about this issue of the tour that I've been doing, we call it the Fight for Our Freedoms Tour, one of the things that I've been doing, and it's been for college-age young people. So it's been in universities and colleges, community colleges, and trade schools. And I've now met with, my staff tells me, probably tens of thousands of young people. And Mayor, I want to thank you for your role of leadership as a young leader. And I will almost every time ask the young leaders who show up, by the tens of thousands they have, please raise your hand if at any time between kindergarten and 12th grade you had to endure an active shooter drill. And it is something that is hair-raising when you watch the majority of those hands go up. And I will often say to the older adults who are here in the media, take a look at this, because I don't think by way of public policy or public priorities we have fully understood and acknowledged what our young people are going through and the challenges that they face, including obstacles to their path for opportunity. So I say all that to say I thank each of you for lifting up the voices of our young leaders and nurturing and creating opportunities for all of them to be who we know they are. And we are counting on them. And in that way, we are counting on each of you. Mr. Chair, Representative Kenyatta, I want to thank you for your leadership always and everything you do, but in addition to this commission, and our Executive Director, Alexis Holmes, where is she? There you are. Thank you for your work. So this commission will then do the work that is motivated by understanding the talent of our young people and their capacity, and doing the work then of advising the president, advising me, advising our administration on how we can enhance the path toward their success, how we can identify the obstacles on that path, and how we can widen the path in terms of the opportunities that are available to tap into who they are and the potential for who they can be. The work of this commission is part of a larger equity agenda that President Biden and I have had since day one. You know, it's an interesting thing in some parts of our country, like Florida, where they would try to say DEI is a bad thing. They're trying to turn it into a pejorative. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are the forces we're fighting against, by the way, when we are motivated by an understanding that on the issue of equity, for example, it's a simple point. We believe in equality, and that if everyone got an equal amount, that they'd be able to compete equally. But the underlying assumption is a flawed assumption, which is everyone starts out on the same base. Equity and our drive for that to be one of our guiding principles is to understand not everyone starts out on the same base, but should have equal opportunity to compete based on their talent and their gifts. So the work of this commission is an extension of a profound priority for the Biden-Harris administration to be guided by equity, guided by creating opportunity for access to a quality education, opportunity for access to capital and to the ability to generate and grow wealth, and of course opportunity for all those baseline issues that are about just overall health and well-being and the dignity to which all people are entitled. So the work of your commission is extraordinarily important to what we are doing and intend to do for our country. And I'll close by then saying this. You know, the work that we have done of everything from, and I will say as a proud HBCU graduate, of getting over $7 billion to our HBCUs, the work that we are still trying to do around reducing student loan debt and increasing Pell Grant awards, which we have done. This is all good work, and these are just but a couple of examples, but there is more work to do. And so we are counting on you to help advise us as we take the next steps, which we intend to take with the ambition that should be associated with any of our work, understanding the great potential of our young leaders to take us to the next place as a country, and understanding that our investment in them is in our investment in ourselves and our future. So with that, I am now prepared to swear this commission in. And I would like to then ask you each to stand, if you are able. And I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand. And then I'm going to ask you to repeat after me, except that I'm going to first start by saying I and then ask you to state your name. Okay. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any hesitation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter. So help me God. Congratulations, commissioners.